All right, there's many reasons why some people call Tom Brady the GOAT, the greatest of all time, grudgingly in the case of this correspondent. But the legendary quarterback will further cement his legacy when he plays in his 10th Super Bowl this Sunday. At the age of 43, he'll become I'm laughing at this line, he'll become the oldest quarterback to ever play in the NFL season finale because he looks exactly the same way that he did when he won his first Super Bowl. So Tampa Bay, as everyone knows now, is facing off against the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 55. And while it is his first season with a new team, Brady has already broken dozens of records in his stellar career. For a closer look at Brady's historic accomplishments on the gridiron, let's bring in CBS Sports NFL analyst and five-time NFL Executive of the Year, Scott Pioli. All right, Scott, so you heard me like grumbling because, you know, I was not a Patriots fan throughout his entire run of his greatness. But there are many who consider Brady to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time for his on-field achievements. There's often an overlooked part of his game, I guess, his emotional intelligence. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Vlad, sorry to hear that you're not a lover of Tom, but, you know, his emotional intelligence, he has this ability, you know, there's so many ways to describe and so many elements of emotional intelligence, but some of the things that just ooze out of Tommy is his authenticity, his humility, yet this ability to also be confident at the same time. He's by far one of the greatest leaders I've ever been around. He has this remarkable balance of being able to hold people accountable, yet without being judgmental of them. And he also has this way, I think a very important part of emotional intelligence, he allows himself to be vulnerable. And he allows his teammates to see it. He allows coaches to see it. He allows all the people that he's close to see it. And that gives him a degree of authenticity that so many people can relate to and make him trustworthy. And the thing is, it's not contrived. It's really who he is. I mean, part of it is, hey, Tommy's a crier, and he's not afraid to allow people to see that. And I think it just brings people closer to him and trust him so much more, Vlad.
So you were part of the Patriots organization in 2000 when Tom Brady was drafted. What was he like then? Like, did he come into the league as a leader, or is that something that he sort of grew into and developed?
Emery, he came in as a leader, but he was a different kind of leader because he also came with this incredible degree of humility. You know, quick story, I remember in 2001, the year after he had just finished his rookie year, it was April of 2001, we were preparing for the draft. It's late at night on a Friday night in April, early April. I'm getting ready to leave the office. I'm one of the last people to leave the office, and I see that our indoor facility lights are on. I go over there, and parked outside is Tom had this ugly little yellow Jeep. And I go inside the facility, and there he is at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night by himself with a boom box, with elastics around his ankle, doing footwork drills and throwing the ball. One of the reasons he's been able to lead so much is because he has continued to work so hard from the beginning. But this was the kind of work that people kind of knew he was doing but didn't always see. And I'll never forget in that interaction, Emery, I spoke to him. I went in and I said, hey, Tommy, make sure you shut down the lights. You know, make sure that you lock the place up when you're out of here. Again, this is a Friday night in April, and you're Tom Brady. There's a lot of other things you could have been doing, trust me. And he looks at me as I'm getting ready to leave. He says, hey, P, he says, do me a favor. Don't tell anyone you saw me here tonight. And he had this look in his eyes that was like pleading with me, but almost fear that he didn't want people to know how hard he had to work and the things that he had to do in order to get better, to become a great player in the league.
Yeah, it's such an interesting point. And, you know, to be fair to Tom, I mean, he doesn't need me because he's got millions of fans. But, you know, I remember actually, believe it or not, guys, I was a huge Drew Bledsoe fan, even though I wasn't a Pats fan because I'm a Giants fan. But I liked Drew Bledsoe. I watched his career in college, and I was excited when the Pats drafted him. And you know, what I love about Brady's story is stepping into a role that you've been preparing for, but you never know when that might happen. You never know when greatness might be knocking on the door and you're there to answer that call, which is exactly what happened. Bledsoe got hurt and Brady was put in. So today marks those 19 years since Brady first appeared in his first Super Bowl, of course, defeating the St. Louis Rams back in 2002. Sunday's game will be Brady's 10th trip to the big game. I got to believe that part of the reason why he has been so successful for so long goes back to what I was just saying. Sometimes, things happen and it's serendipitous. It's, a blessing. It's whatever you want to call it. But stepping up is sometimes all you need to get on that path to greatness.
Vlad, you nailed it. Part of being able to succeed is being prepared when your opportunity comes. And here's a couple of things about Tom. His work ethic is remarkable. His work habits are remarkable, but he also keeps this incredible balance of life and work and professionalism. And Vlad, you nailed it. And I think all of the great players that come into this league and have great success, again, there has to be this confluence of preparation and opportunity. But part of Brady's ability, again, I see work ethic and work habits as being two distinctly different things, and he has those. But he'll also be the first person to tell you, yes, I worked hard. Yes, I did all the right things. Yes, I've balanced my life. But he will be the first to tell you how blessed he's been, not only for the opportunity, but to remain healthy. And part of his health has been related to his preparation. But, there's always a little bit of luck involved in that too, Vlad.
I'm going to assume that Tom, with that story that you told us about him working Friday night, at 10 o'clock, that Tom Brady let you out of that agreement that you had, because you just shared it with us. And I'm glad you shared it with us, because it sort of leads into the question that I'm about to ask you, which is about, adversity, that, he has been written off several times. We've heard how old he is. But he seems to overcome that adversity. And you gave us a little window into perhaps how he does. Maybe it's just that he doubles down on the work, but he's not someone who's got a megaphone saying, look at me, I'm working so hard. And maybe there's a mental, emotional component to it, too, is what you're saying. So from what you've witnessed, how do you think he deals with adversity?
Well, I think what happens is he is just genuinely humble. He has this degree of humility that, again, for someone who's had as much success as him, he really focuses on at the times in life where he didn't have success. The way he holds other people accountable, he holds himself to a level of hyper accountability that is beyond what he does for other people. And a little more insight I'll give you. He has never been one of these people who, people see him now, and he has never been one of these people who woke up on third base and thinks that he hit the triple. He knows what adversity is. He knows how hard he had to work to get where he was. Again, go back to his youth. He ended up at the University of Michigan. He never even became the full-time starter there. Drew Henson bumped ahead of him during his senior year, and he didn't even become a full-time starter. Then he gets drafted in the 6th round. We didn't pick him until 199 overall. He has had these moments of being humbled throughout his life, and he has embraced that truth. He's never looked at someone else or looked and blamed it on it being, oh, Coach Carr didn't want to play me. Oh, I should have been picked earlier. He has this genuine humility that he really embraces and uses it as part of his fuel to make him a champion and to make himself not only a great player, but a great person as well.
Hey, Scott, real quick, I just wanted something you said that's interesting there about when you picked Brady in the draft. What was it about him that had you and the other scouts looking at him? Because, as I said, you did have a franchise quarterback. You had Drew Bledsoe, who a lot of people thought was going to be the future of the Pats. So what were you looking at? What did you see?
Vlad, I'd love to sit here and tell you that we were smarter than everybody else and we knew that this was going to work out. But the truth is, when you pick someone 199 overall, that's not the case. I think part of what we had was we had a very good system of collaboration and a lot of thought into who we drafted. And it started with, not just Bill and myself. Bobby Greer was involved. Dick Raybon was involved. Charlie Weiss was involved. We had a collaborative effort and a group of people that we referred to or certainly worked with to make sure that we were bringing in the right players. Now, we started talking about Tommy in the 3rd round, actually, but part of it is what you mentioned, Vlad. We had a quarterback. When we took over in 2000, again, people don't always look at things in context. And in 2000, when we took that team over, we had 42 players under contract and we're $10.5 million over the cap. One thing that we did have was a quarterback. We had a starting quarterback in Drew Bledsoe. We had a backup in John Freeze, and we had a 3rd quarterback on our roster already. And what we didn't need was a quarterback. We couldn't even fill our roster. So in those earlier rounds, we were just simply trying to draft based on need. And in the draft, there's always this delicate balance between best player available and need. What's on your roster and what's not on your roster. And as we got to this point, though, in the 5th round, we're saying to ourselves, why is this guy so high on our board and we're not picking him? We're not doing what's right. And then finally in the 6th round, he was so far and away better than the players we were looking at, and we took him. And the rest is history. But I'll say this. We fortunately made a good decision because of the collaboration. But Tom Brady worked himself into becoming the player that he is. There's no doubting that is the truth.
Yeah, that's cool.
Scott, that's pretty insightful. Did that move the needle at all for you, Vlad?
It does,
It's got
and
to.
it always has. I always say it tongue-in-cheek because, I love the game of football. I love watching it, and he's just so good at it. And when I watch somebody like Tom Brady playing the game at this level, 19 years or whatever it is into it, and I think back to, like, my boyhood heroes, Joe Namath and Roger Staubach and Terry Bradshaw and all those guys who played in the 70s and early 80s, and a lot of these guys retired like before they hit 40, and they were like beaten up. And you're seeing Tom Brady, as I said, looking the same way, throwing the same way, hasn't lost a step. It's really, really remarkable, and it goes to what you were saying, Scott. I mean, it's got to be part work ethic, part obviously opportunity, but also he's just a freak of nature when it comes to the game of football.
Hey, no, but he works hard. You know how that guy eats. Clean living.
You need a little bit of talent too, Emery.
Hey, Scott, it was an absolute pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
That was
Hope we do it
great.
again soon.
Thanks, Scott.